In the darkness of the empty forest, SCP-682, the unstoppable reptilian juggernaut, stood tall, its scaly body glistening in the faint moonlight. Suddenly, it sensed a presence, and its gaze fell upon a shadowy silhouette with glowing red eyes. As the figure emerged from the darkness, SCP-682's eyes widened in recognition. It was Doomsday, the unstoppable alien monster from the DC Comics universe. Doomsday's massive, muscular body towered over SCP-682, its eyes burning with an inner fire. The two behemoths regarded each other warily, their very presence seeming to shake the foundations of the forest. But before they could engage, a burst of energy illuminated the forest, and Broly, the legendary Super Saiyan from the Dragon Ball universe, appeared on the scene. His massive, muscular body crackled with energy, and his eyes blazed with a fierce, battle-hungry intensity. SCP-682 and Doomsday turned their heads to regard Broly, their gazes wary and calculating. But before they could react, another figure emerged from the shadows. Lobo, the main man from the DC Comics universe, swaggered into view, his massive, muscular body rippling with power. His eyes gleamed with a manic, battle-crazed intensity, and his signature fishhook-shaped chains hung at the ready. The four behemoths regarded each other, their very presence seeming to crackle with energy. The air was electric with anticipation, and the forest trembled with fear. The stage was set for an epic, destructive war, one that would shake the very foundations of reality. SCP-682, Doomsday, Broly, and Lobo prepared themselves for battle, their eyes locked in a fierce, unyielding stare. The war was coming, and nothing would ever be the same again. The four behemoths clashed in a frenzy of steel and fury, their blows shaking the very foundations of the forest. SCP-682 and Doomsday, with their razor-sharp metallic bodies, exchanged blows with precision and deadliness. SCP-682's claws swiped through the air, seeking to rend and tear, while Doomsday's jagged, bony protrusions thrust outward, aiming to impale and crush. Meanwhile, Broly and Lobo, fueled by their brute strength, traded blows with reckless abandon. Broly's massive fists crashed into Lobo's chest, sending the main man flying across the clearing. Lobo, undeterred, charged forward, his chains whipping through the air, seeking to ensnare and dismember Broly. As the battle raged on, the four fighters began to take damage. SCP-682's scales were dented and scratched, while Doomsday's bony protrusions were cracked and splintered. Broly's massive body was bruised and battered, while Lobo's chains were tangled and twisted. Despite their injuries, the four behemoths refused to yield. They fought on, their blows growing more ferocious and desperate. The forest around them began to burn, the trees splintering and shattering under the force of their attacks. In the midst of the chaos, SCP-682 and Doomsday found themselves facing off against each other. Their metallic bodies clashed, sparks flying as they exchanged blow after blow. Broly and Lobo, meanwhile, stumbled backward, their strength waning. As the dust settled, the four fighters stood panting, their chests heaving with exhaustion. The forest around them was in ruins, the trees reduced to splintered stumps. The air was thick with smoke and ash. In the midst of the devastation, the four behemoths locked eyes, their gazes burning with a fierce, unyielding intensity. The battle may have paused, but the war was far from over. As the battle raged on, SCP-682 and Doomsday began to showcase their adaptability abilities. SCP-682's body began to shift and contort, its scales morphing into a series of razor-sharp, hook-like protrusions. Doomsday, meanwhile, began to alter its own body, its bony protrusions growing longer and sharper. Broly, still fueled by his rage, charged forward, determined to take down his opponents. However, SCP-682 and Doomsday's adaptability abilities allowed them to counter his attacks with ease. SCP-682's hook-like protrusion snagged onto Broly's arms, holding him in place as Doomsday unleashed a barrage of sharp, bony blows. Lobo, meanwhile, continued to demonstrate his incredibly resilient and immortal alien body. Despite being pummeled by Broly's massive fists, Lobo simply laughed off the attacks, his body regenerating from even the most grievous wounds. As the battle continued, SCP-682 and Doomsday began to push the limits of their adaptability abilities. SCP-682's body began to shift and flow like a liquid, allowing it to dodge and weave around Broly's attacks with ease. Doomsday, meanwhile, began to alter its own molecular structure, becoming increasingly resistant to damage. Broly, despite his incredible strength, began to tire. His attacks grew slower and more labored, and he stumbled backward under the relentless onslaught of SCP-682 and Doomsday. Lobo, still grinning from ear to ear, watched the battle unfold with interest. "This is getting good," he chuckled, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "Let's see how long Broly can keep this up." As the battle raged on, it became clear that SCP-682 and Doomsday's adaptability abilities gave them a significant advantage. But Broly's sheer strength and Lobo's immortal body ensured that the fight was far from over. SCP-682, fueled by its ferocity and intelligence, began to unleash a devastating combination of attacks. Its body darted and weaved, striking at Doomsday with precision and deadliness. SCP-682's claws ripped through the air, leaving trails of destruction in their wake. Doomsday, meanwhile, had descended into a state of pure berserk fury. Its eyes blazed with an unyielding hatred, and its voice became a mindless, repetitive chant. Reptile must be destroyed. It bellowed, its massive body charging forward with reckless abandon. Raleigh, fueled by his anger and rage, began to tap into his inner reserves of strength and power. His muscles bulged, his eyes blazed with fury, and his massive fists crashed into Lobo with incredible force. Lobo, grinning from ear to ear, reveled in the chaos of battle. He employed his brawler fighting styles, using his agility and quick reflexes to dodge Brawley's attacks. Lobo's chains whipped through the air, seeking to ensnare and dismember Brawley. His combat knife flashed in the dim light, striking at Brawley's vulnerable spots. As the battle raged on, the four fighters clashed in a frenzy of steel, claws, and fists. The air was filled with the sound of crashing, the scent of blood and sweat, and the unyielding fury of the combatants. SCP-682's intelligence guided its attacks, seeking to exploit Doomsday's mindless fury. Doomsday's relentless assault pushed SCP-682 to its limits, forcing it to adapt and evolve its tactics. Brawley's rage-fueled strength clashed with Lobo's cunning and agility. Lobo's brawler fighting styles allowed him to stay one step ahead of Brawley's attacks, but the Saiyan's sheer power kept Lobo on his toes. The battle showed no signs of slowing, each fighter driven by their own unique motivations and desires. The outcome was far from certain, but one thing was clear, only one could emerge victorious. The four brutes continued to exchange blows, their attacks growing more intense and destructive. SCP-682 unleashed a devastating green sonic roar, the wave of energy crashing into Doomsday and sending it stumbling backward. Doomsday quickly recovered, its red glowing laser eyes blazing with intensity as it fired a concentrated beam of energy at SCP-682. The beam struck SCP-682 with incredible force, but the reptilian behemoth's regenerative abilities allowed it to rapidly heal from the damage. Raleigh, meanwhile, unleashed a barrage of long-range energy attacks, the blasts of energy striking Lobo with incredible force. Lobo, however, was no stranger to combat, and he countered Brawley's attacks with his own arsenal of long-range weapons. Lobo's chains whipped through the air, striking Brawley with precision and deadliness. His combat knife flashed in the dim light, seeking to find its mark in Brawley's vulnerable spots. Brawley's rage-fueled strength allowed him to shrug off the attacks, but Lobo's cunning and agility kept him one step ahead of the Saiyan's counterattacks. As the battle raged on, the four brutes began to tire. Their attacks grew slower and more labored, but their determination and fury remained unwavering. SCP-682's sonic roar waves continued to shake the air, while Doomsday's laser eyes blazed with an unyielding intensity. Brawley's energy attacks struck Lobo with incredible force, but the main man's regenerative abilities allowed him to rapidly heal from the damage. The outcome of the battle remained uncertain, but one thing was clear, only one could emerge victorious. The four brutes would continue to clash, their fury and determination driving them forward, until only one remained standing. SCP-682, fueled by its ferocity and strength, lunged at Doomsday with its sharper teeth and claws. The reptilian behemoth's jaws snapped shut, seeking to tear apart Doomsday's massive body. Its claws swiped through the air, aiming to rend and tear Doomsday's flesh. But Doomsday, the unstoppable alien monster, refused to yield. Its spiked knuckles gleamed with a deadly intensity as it counterattacked SCP-682. The knuckles pierced SCP-682's eyes, causing the reptilian behemoth to roar in agony. Doomsday's massive fists then tore apart SCP-682's limbs, sending the reptilian behemoth stumbling backward. Despite its injuries, SCP-682 refused to yield. Its regenerative abilities allowed it to rapidly heal from the damage, and it counterattacked Doomsday with renewed ferocity. Meanwhile, Brawley continued to clash with Lobo, their battle raging on with no end in sight. Brawley's massive fists crashed into Lobo, sending the main man flying across the battlefield. But Lobo's regenerative abilities allowed him to rapidly heal from the damage, and he counterattacked Brawley with his chains and combat knife. Despite his incredible strength, Brawley found himself unable to completely defeat Lobo. The main man's cunning and agility allowed him to stay one step ahead of Brawley's attacks, and their battle continued to rage on. As the fight wore on, the four brutes began to tire. Their attacks grew slower and more labored, but their determination and fury remained unwavering. The outcome of the battle remained uncertain, but one thing was clear, only one could emerge victorious. As the battle between the four brutes raged on, a new force emerged on the horizon. The military army, armed with tanks, artillery, and infantry, arrived on the scene, ready to take on the monstrous quartet. The four brutes, momentarily distracted from their battle, turned to face the military army. They stared at the army, their eyes fixed on the rows of tanks and artillery, the soldiers armed and ready. The military army, emboldened by their numbers and firepower, launched a barrage of attacks against the four brutes. Artillery shells rained down, tanks fired their cannons, and infantrymen unleashed a hail of bullets. The four brutes, caught off guard by the sudden onslaught, stumbled backward under the intense firepower. They quickly regained their footing, but the military army's relentless assault forced them to retreat. Doomsday, however, refused to back down. The unstoppable alien monster charged forward, its massive body shrugging off the military's attacks. It tore through the army's ranks, its spiked knuckles and jagged teeth ripping apart soldiers and tanks with ease. Raleigh, meanwhile, transformed into his Super Saiyan state, his body glowing with a golden aura. He unleashed a wave of intense heat, burning through the military army's ranks and reducing tanks and artillery to smoldering wreckage. As the military army faltered, the four brutes began to regroup. SCP-682 and Lobo watched from a distance, their eyes fixed on Doomsday and Raleigh as they tore through the military army. The battle had taken a new turn, with the four brutes now facing off against the military army. The outcome was far from certain, but one thing was clear, only one side could emerge victorious. As the military army faltered, SCP-682 refocused its attention on Doomsday, its arch-nemesis. With a swift and deadly motion, SCP-682 grabbed Doomsday between its jaws, the two monsters crashing into the nearby water. The battle continued underwater, the two behemoths exchanging blows and scratches as they wrestled beneath the surface. The water churned and foamed as they clashed, their massive bodies undulating through the waves. Suddenly, SCP-682 and Doomsday burst out of the water, their bodies arcing through the air in slow motion. As they emerged from the water, they began to clash, their sharp body parts and glowing eyes locked in a fierce and deadly struggle. The air seemed to ripple and distort as they exchanged blows, their movement slowed down to a crawl. SCP-682's claws raked across Doomsday's chest, leaving deep gashes that glowed with a faint, otherworldly energy. Doomsday retaliated with a swipe of its own, its spiked knuckles tearing through SCP-682's scales and sending the reptilian behemoth stumbling backward. As they clashed, the two monsters generated a slow-motion scratch and attack motion, their bodies seemingly frozen in time as they exchanged blow after blow. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, SCP-682 and Doomsday crashed to the ground, their bodies slamming into the earth with incredible force. The impact sent shockwaves through the ground, causing the surrounding landscape to shudder and tremble. As the dust settled, SCP-682 and Doomsday slowly rose to their feet, their bodies battered and bruised but still functioning. They locked eyes, their gazes burning with a fierce and unyielding intensity. The battle was far from over. Raleigh, still fueled by his rage and Super Saiyan power, kicked Lobo far away, sending the main man crashing into the distance. As Raleigh turned to face his next opponent, he was met with a shocking sight, SCP-682 and Doomsday standing on either side of him, their eyes fixed intently on the Saiyan warrior. Raleigh's gaze darted back and forth between the two behemoths, his eyes widening as he took in the sight of SCP-682's green glowing bladed tail and Doomsday's red glowing spiked knuckles and fists. The air seemed to crackle with energy as the two monsters charged up for their attack. Without warning, SCP-682 and Doomsday dashed at Raleigh, their glowing, weaponized body parts leading the charge. SCP-682's bladed tail sliced through the air, its green glow illuminating the surrounding landscape. Doomsday's spiked fists and knuckles, meanwhile, glowed with an intense, fiery red light, as if fueled by the very flames of destruction. Raleigh, anticipating the attack, dodged to the side with incredible speed and agility. The two monsters, however, were unable to stop their momentum, and their attacks collided in a spectacular display of power and fury. Doomsday's red glowing spiked fists and knuckles crashed into SCP-682's green glowing bladed tail, causing a massive shockwave to rip through the entire battlefield. The impact sent Raleigh stumbling backward, his eyes wide with awe and respect for the sheer power of the two behemoths. As the dust settled, Raleigh regained his footing, his gaze fixed intently on SCP-682 and Doomsday. The two monsters, still locked in a fierce standoff, seemed to be sizing each other up, their eyes burning with an unyielding intensity. The battle was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning. As the dust settled, the four behemoths turned their attention to the remaining military forces, who were still trying to regroup and launch a counterattack. SCP-682, Doomsday, Raleigh, and Lobo charged forward, their massive bodies plowing through the military ranks like a juggernaut. The military forces, despite their bravery, were no match for the sheer power and ferocity of the four behemoths. Tanks were crushed, artillery was overturned, and soldiers were scattered like toys. As the military forces faltered, the four behemoths began to turn on each other. SCP-682's bladed tail sliced through the air, seeking to strike down Doomsday. Doomsday, meanwhile, retaliated with its spiked fists, aiming to crush SCP-682's skull. Raleigh, still fueled by his Super Saiyan power, charged forward, his massive fists glowing with energy. He clashed with Lobo, the two of them exchanging blows that shook the very foundations of the earth. Lobo, with his cunning and agility, managed to dodge Raleigh's attacks, but the Saiyan warrior's sheer strength kept the main man on his toes. Lobo's chains whipped through the air, seeking to ensnare Raleigh and immobilize him. As the battle raged on, the four behemoths continued to clash, their powers and abilities locked in a struggle that seemed to have no end. The earth shook, the skies grew dark, and the very fabric of reality seemed to tremble under the force of their conflict. In the end, it seemed that only one could emerge victorious. But which one would it be? Only time would tell. The scenario depicts a chaotic and intense battle between four powerful entities, SCP-682, Doomsday, Raleigh, and Lobo. Each entity possesses unique abilities and strengths, making them formidable opponents. SCP-682, a reptilian creature, has regenerative capabilities and sharp claws. Doomsday, an alien monster, possesses immense strength and durability. Raleigh, a Super Saiyan warrior, wields incredible energy-based attacks. Lobo, an immortal alien bounty hunter, has enhanced strength, agility, and durability. As they fight each other, their eyes glow with distinct colors, symbolizing their unique energies and powers. The colored glowing eyes add an otherworldly dimension to the battle. Simultaneously, the four entities are also battling the military, which is futilely attempting to take them down. The military's efforts are in vain, as the four behemoths are too powerful to be defeated by conventional means. The battle is eternal, with no end in sight, as the four entities continue to clash with each other in the military. The scenario is a depiction of unrelenting chaos and destruction, with the four powerful entities wreaking havoc on the world. The scenario depicts a brutal and intense battle between four powerful entities, SCP-682, Doomsday, Raleigh, and Lobo. The four behemoths are now focused solely on destroying each other, unleashing their full fury and might in a no-holds-barred battle. SCP-682's sharp claws and teeth tear into Doomsday's armored hide, while Doomsday's spiked fists and feet pound into SCP-682's scaly body. Raleigh, fueled by his Super Saiyan rage, unleashes a barrage of energy blasts and physical attacks on Lobo, who retaliates with his own brand of brutal violence, using his chains and combat knife to devastating effect. The battle is a chaotic and destructive melee, with each entity trading blows and neither gaining the upper hand. The four behemoths are evenly matched, each possessing unique abilities and strengths that allow them to hold their own against the others. As the fight rages on, the landscape around them is reduced to rubble and ashes, a testament to the sheer destructive power of these four titans. The battle shows no signs of slowing, with each entity determined to emerge victorious, no matter the cost. Raleigh, fueled by his Super Saiyan rage, attempted to crash land on Lobo, but the main man sidestepped the attack with ease. However, Raleigh quickly recovered and dashed at Lobo, unleashing a flurry of punches and kicks that sent Lobo flying. Raleigh pursued Lobo, determined to finish him off. He thrashed Lobo mercilessly, his blows raining down on the main man like a storm. Lobo, despite his incredible resilience, was unable to withstand Raleigh's onslaught and was eventually put out of commission. As Lobo lay defeated, SCP-682 turned its attention to Raleigh, its eyes fixed on the Super Saiyan warrior with a mixture of curiosity and hostility. Doomsday, sensing an opportunity to take down its enemies, joined the fray, and the three behemoths clashed in a frenzy of teeth, claws, and fists. The battle was intense and chaotic, with the three brutes rolling around, thrashing, and trashing each other. SCP-682's sharp claws tore into Doomsday's armored hide, while Raleigh's energy blasts and physical attacks pounded into SCP-682's scaly body. Doomsday, meanwhile, used its incredible strength to pummel Raleigh, sending the Super Saiyan warrior flying across the battlefield. The fight showed no signs of slowing, with each behemoth determined to emerge victorious. The outcome was far from certain, but one thing was clear, only one could be left standing. Raleigh, fueled by his incredible Super Saiyan strength, immediately overpowered Lobo, the main man. With a swift and devastating combination of punches and kicks, Raleigh sent Lobo crashing to the ground. Lobo, known for his incredible resilience and regenerative abilities, was unable to withstand Raleigh's onslaught. The main man's usual confidence and swagger were replaced by a look of shock and pain as Raleigh's attacks rained down on him. In a matter of moments, Raleigh had trashed Lobo, leaving him lying defeated and broken on the ground. The Super Saiyan warrior's incredible power had proven too much for the main man, and Lobo was forced to admit defeat. With Lobo out of commission, Raleigh turned his attention to the remaining two behemoths, SCP-682 and Doomsday. The stage was set for an epic showdown between the three most powerful entities in the battle. SCP-682 and Doomsday, enraged by Raleigh's earlier attack on Lobo, launched a ferocious counterattack. The two behemoths thrashed and threw Raleigh, sending him flying across the battlefield. The sheer force of their assault shattered the entire battlefield, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. As Raleigh struggled to get back to his feet, Doomsday and SCP-682 charged at him with reckless abandon. But Raleigh, fueled by his legendary Super Saiyan strength, was ready for them. With a swift and powerful kick, he sent both Doomsday and SCP-682 flying. However, SCP-682, also known as the hard-to-kill reptile, quickly recovered and counterattacked. Its jaws snapped shut around Raleigh's leg, thrashing him violently. At the same time, Doomsday used his spiked knuckles to pierce Raleigh's skin, causing him immense pain. Enraged by the sudden and intense assault, Raleigh's body began to glow with an intense, golden aura. His eyes turned green, and his hair stood on end as he tapped into his legendary Super Saiyan state. With his newfound power, Raleigh was ready to take on his attackers and unleash his full fury upon them. Raleigh, fueled by his legendary Super Saiyan state, launched a fierce attack on Doomsday and SCP-682. However, the two behemoths began to adapt to Raleigh's assault, their bodies evolving to withstand his incredible strength. SCP-682, in particular, quickly got the hang of Raleigh's fighting style and started to thrash him. The reptilian monstrosity's regenerative abilities allowed it to rapidly heal from Raleigh's attacks, making it a formidable opponent. As Brawley struggled to keep up with SCP-682's relentless assault, Doomsday began to slowly increase its walking speed towards Brawley. The two behemoths were now working together, pinning Brawley down with their combined might. However, the temporary alliance between Doomsday and SCP-682 was short-lived. In a sudden and brutal move, Doomsday pulled the tail of the reptilian monstrosity and tore it apart. SCP-682, enraged by the sudden and intense pain, started to get irritated. The reptilian monstrosity and Doomsday began to argue with each other, their roars and snarls filling the air. The two behemoths were now at odds, their temporary alliance forgotten in the heat of the moment. Brawley, taking advantage of the distraction, began to plan his next move, waiting for the perfect moment to strike back at his opponents. SCP-682, still seething with rage from Doomsday's earlier attack, started to scratch Doomsday's armored hide with its sharp claws. However, Doomsday, enraged by the sudden assault, retaliated by scratching SCP-682's scaly skin. As the two behemoths clashed, Brawley saw an opportunity to strike. With a swift and powerful kick, he smashed into Doomsday's face, sending the monster stumbling backward. Brawley then turned his attention to SCP-682, unleashing a blast of energy that burned the reptile's face. Doomsday, recovering from Brawley's attack, immediately counterattacked. With a flurry of powerful blows, he delivered heavy damages to Brawley, sending the Super Saiyan warrior flying across the battlefield. Meanwhile, SCP-682 and Doomsday continued to exchange blows, their roars and snarls filling the air. "You dare to scratch me?" Doomsday bellowed. "I will tear you apart, reptile. You think you can defeat me?" SCP-682 retorted. "I am the hard-to-kill reptile. I will regenerate and come back stronger than ever." The battle raged on, with no end in sight, as the three behemoths continued to clash in a frenzy of teeth, claws, and energy blasts. Here's the explanation. SCP-682 lunged forward, attempting to attack Doomsday. However, Doomsday was too quick and grabbed the reptile's tail, throwing him aside. Doomsday then turned his attention to Brawley, dashing towards him with incredible speed. But Brawley was ready, and with a series of swift and powerful blows, he thrashed Doomsday repeatedly. Brawley then threw Doomsday at a nearby rock, temporarily putting him out of commission. As Doomsday lay grounded, Brawley turned to face him, ready to deliver the finishing blow. Meanwhile, the volcano in the background began to emit a brilliant light energy. The energy enveloped SCP-682, illuminating its back while its front body parts remained hidden in darkness. The reptile's multiple green glowing eyes gleamed in the darkness of its face as it stared at Brawley's back for a moment. Then, Brawley turned his attention to SCP-682, focusing on fighting the monster reptile. The stage was set for an epic showdown between Brawley and SCP-682, with Doomsday temporarily out of commission. The battle was far from over, and the outcome was still uncertain. Here's the explanation. Brawley and SCP-682 clashed in a frenzied dash, with Brawley using his incredible speed to dodge the reptile's sharp metallic claws and teeth. Brawley then countered with a series of rage-fueled, heavy blows to the monster's head, each one increasingly powerful. As the battle raged on, an anime-style effect showcased SCP-682's glowing eyes closing, only to reveal an intense, fierce glare. Enraged, the reptile grabbed Brawley's leg with its teeth and thrashed him repeatedly, heavily scratching Brawley's body and causing him to bleed profusely. As Brawley and SCP-682 stared each other down, panting heavily, Doomsday suddenly appeared, having recovered from his earlier defeat. With a swift and deadly strike, Doomsday stabbed Brawley in the abdomen with his spiked knuckles, the spike penetrating through Brawley's body and causing him to bleed even more heavily. Mortally wounded, Brawley fell to the ground, lifeless. In a shocking turn of events, Doomsday also collapsed, lifeless, beside Brawley's body. SCP-682 stared at Doomsday's lifeless body, then raised its head and let out a mighty roar, as if claiming victory in the battle. Here's the explanation. SCP-682, the reptilian monstrosity, stood victorious, its body silhouetted against the intense light energy erupting from the volcanic explosions behind it. The unique anime-style backlighting effect emphasized the monster's intimidating presence. As SCP-682 raised its head high into the air, its front body parts were shrouded in darkness, while its back was illuminated by the intense light energy. The contrast created an ominous visual effect, highlighting the monster's menacing aura. The reptile's glowing eyes, a piercing green, gleamed in the darkness of its face, seeming to burn with an inner intensity. The eyes appeared to be the only visible feature of SCP-682's face, adding to the monster's enigmatic and terrifying presence. With a mighty roar, SCP-682 declared its dominance over the battlefield, the sound echoing through the air as the volcano continued to erupt in the background. The shot froze on this dramatic moment, emphasizing SCP-682's status as the last one standing. Here's the explanation. The scene shifted to a functional hangar within a functional airport, where the four combatants, SCP-682, Doomsday, Brawley, and Lobo, sat on chairs, relaxing and enjoying each other's company. Despite their earlier intense battle, the four warriors now wore bandages and bruises, a testament to the physical toll of their fight. However, they all seemed to be in good spirits, sipping their drinks and sharing a laugh. It became clear that the earlier battle was not a real fight to the death, but rather an acting performance. The four combatants had been pretending to fight, and now they were enjoying each other's company, relieved that the show was over. The atmosphere was relaxed and convivial, with the four warriors bonding over their shared experience. It was a rare moment of camaraderie among these powerful and often antagonistic characters. Here's the explanation. Lois Lane, the renowned journalist, walked into the hangar, her eyes scanning the room as she took in the sight of the four warriors sitting together, nursing their drinks. She approached them with a warm smile, her curiosity evident in her voice as she asked, "So, how's everyone feeling after the shoot?" Her question was met with a chorus of responses, each one reflecting the unique personality of the warrior. SCP-682, ever the enigmatic reptile, simply grunted, its glowing eyes gleaming with a hint of satisfaction. Doomsday, the monstrous alien, let out a low rumble, its deep voice vibrating through the air as it replied, "I'm feeling adequate." Raleigh, the legendary Super Saiyan, flashed a wide grin, his eyes sparkling with excitement as he exclaimed, "That was amazing. I loved every minute of it." Lobo, the main man, chuckled, his gravelly voice dripping with sarcasm as he drawled, "Yeah, because nothing says fun like getting beaten up by a bunch of psychopaths." Lois Lane laughed, her eyes shining with amusement as she nodded, "Well, I'm glad you all enjoyed yourselves. You certainly put on a show." Here is the revised explanation. Lois Lane, the renowned journalist, walked into the hangar, her eyes scanning the room as she took in the sight of the four warriors sitting together, nursing their drinks. She approached them with a warm smile, her curiosity evident in her voice as she asked, "So, how's everyone feeling after the shoot?" SCP-682, ever the enigmatic reptile, spoke up, its voice low and menacing, "I am satisfied. The battle was intense. But I would have preferred to devour my opponents rather than simply act alongside them." Doomsday, the monstrous alien, let out a low rumble, its deep voice vibrating through the air as it replied, "I'm feeling adequate." Raleigh, the legendary Super Saiyan, flashed a wide grin, his eyes sparkling with excitement as he exclaimed, "That was amazing. I loved every minute of it." Lobo, the main man, chuckled, his gravelly voice dripping with sarcasm as he drawled, "Yeah, because nothing says fun like getting beaten up by a bunch of psychopaths." Lois Lane laughed, her eyes shining with amusement as she nodded, "Well, I'm glad you all enjoyed yourselves. You certainly put on a show." Here's the explanation. Lois Lane walked out of the hangar, leaving the four warriors, SCP-682, Doomsday, Raleigh, and Lobo, to their drinks. Suddenly, two dinosaurs, an Utahraptor and an Allosaurus, appeared inside the hangar without any apparent purpose. The four brutes stared at the dinosaurs, sighing in unison. SCP-682 spoke up, its voice laced with irritation, "I have no time to put up with your things." The reptile then led the group, including the dinosaurs, towards the nearby wall of the hangar. As they reached the wall, the Utahraptor and Allosaurus slowly lay down on the floor, relaxing their massive bodies. The four warriors followed suit, slowly lowering their bodies to the floor and lying down. With their pupil-less eyes closed, the four brutes seemed to succumb to exhaustion, their chests rising and falling with slow, deep breaths. The hangar door creaked shut, plunging the room into darkness, and the story came to a close. Here's the explanation. The Allosaurus and the female Utahraptor appeared inside the hangar, seemingly without any purpose or reason. Despite their intimidating presence, they didn't appear to have any agenda or motivation. The Allosaurus spoke up, its voice deep and rumbling, "I'm hungry." However, it didn't seem to be looking for food, and its statement seemed almost arbitrary. The female Utahraptor chimed in, her voice slightly higher pitched than the Allosaurus, "I'm tired." Again, her statement seemed without context or purpose. The two dinosaurs stood there, making seemingly pointless statements, as the four warriors, SCP-682, Doomsday, Raleigh, and Lobo, looked on with a mixture of confusion and disinterest. Here's the explanation. The four warriors, SCP-682, Doomsday, Raleigh, and Lobo, finally succumbed to exhaustion, their bodies battered and bruised from their intense battle. They slowly lay down on the floor, their massive frames sprawled out across the hangar. SCP-682, the reptile, let out a deep sigh, its chest heaving with exhaustion. Doomsday, the monstrous alien, grunted softly, its eyes closing as it relaxed. Raleigh, the legendary Super Saiyan, smiled wearily, his eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "That was fun," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Lobo, the main man, chuckled, his gravelly voice dripping with sarcasm. "Yeah, because nothing says fun like getting beaten to a pulp by your friends." As they lay there, the four warriors slowly drifted off to sleep, their bodies recovering from the intense battle they had just endured. The hangar fell silent, the only sound the soft rustling of their breathing. Here's the explanation. In the post-credits scene, the female Utahraptor was shown in a sleeping state, curled up and shivering slightly. She pulled her knees towards her throat and wrapped her clawed fingers around them, seeking comfort. The Allosaurus, also in a sleeping state, sensed her distress and used its clawed arms to gently pull her closer. The female Utahraptor turned towards the Allosaurus and wrapped her arms and tail around it, embracing it in a tender moment. As they slept, entwined in each other's arms, the scene shifted to Sun Wukong, the owner of SCP-682, sitting cross-legged on the floor nearby. He was in a motionless meditative position, his palms on his knees and eyes closed, exuding an aura of calm and serenity. The scene faded to black, marking the end of the story, with a sense of peace and tranquility settling over the characters. Here are some extra additional dialogues. Allosaurus, I'm glad we're finally getting some rest. That battle was exhausting. Female Utahraptor, I know, right? I've never felt so drained in my life. Sun Wukong opens his eyes, looks around, and nods. Rest well, my friends. Tomorrow will bring new challenges. SCP-682 stirs in its sleep, growling softly, I will be ready. Here are the additional extra dialogues. Allosaurus, I'm glad we're finally getting some rest. That battle was exhausting. Female Utahraptor, I know, right? I've never felt so drained in my life. Female Utahraptor, thanks for keeping me warm, Allosaurus. I was freezing. Allosaurus, anytime, Utahraptor. We're in this together. Sun Wukong opens his eyes, looks around, and nods. Rest well, my friends. Tomorrow will bring new challenges. SCP-682 stirs in its sleep, growling softly, I will be ready. Here are the additional extra dialogues. Allosaurus, I'm glad we're finally getting some rest. That battle was exhausting. Female Utahraptor, I know, right? I've never felt so drained in my life. Female Utahraptor, thanks for keeping me warm, Allosaurus. I was freezing. Allosaurus, anytime, Utahraptor. We're in this together. SCP-682 stirs in its sleep, growling softly, I will be ready. You are correct, SCP-682 had no dialogues in the original scenario. Here are the corrected additional extra dialogues. Allosaurus, I'm glad we're finally getting some rest. That battle was exhausting. Female Utahraptor, I know, right? I've never felt so drained in my life. Female Utahraptor, thanks for keeping me warm, Allosaurus. I was freezing. Allosaurus, anytime, Utahraptor. We're in this together. Here's a breakdown of the post-credit scenario. The setting. The scene takes place in the same hangar where the four warriors SCP-682, Doomsday, Royale, and Lobo had their intense battle. The characters. The characters present in this scene are Female Utahraptor. Allosaurus. Sun Wukong, owner of SCP-682. SCP-682 in the background, sleeping. The actions. Here's what happens in the scene. The female Utahraptor is shown sleeping, curled up and shivering slightly. The Allosaurus, also sleeping, senses the Utahraptor's distress and uses its arms to gently pull her closer. The Utahraptor turns towards the Allosaurus and wraps her arms and tail around it, embracing it. Sun Wukong is seen sitting cross-legged on the floor, meditating. The dialogues. The following dialogues take place. Allosaurus, I'm glad we're finally getting some rest. That battle was exhausting. Female Utahraptor, I know, right? I've never felt so drained in my life. Female Utahraptor, thanks for keeping me warm, Allosaurus. I was freezing. Allosaurus, anytime, Utahraptor. We're in this together. The significance. This post-credit scenario shows a softer side to the characters, highlighting their ability to form connections and show affection. It also provides a sense of closure and tranquility after the intense battle. Here's a detailed breakdown of the post-credit scenario. The setting. The scene takes place in the same hangar where the four warriors SCP-682, Doomsday, Royale, and Lobo had their intense battle. The characters. The characters present in this scene are Female Utahraptor, a bipedal theropod dinosaur. Allosaurus, a large carnivorous dinosaur. Sun Wukong, the owner of SCP-682, sitting in a meditative position. SCP-682, the reptile, sleeping in the background. The actions. Here's what happens in the scene. Female Utahraptor's sleeping state. The Utahraptor is shown sleeping, curled up and shivering slightly. Allosaurus, reaction. The Allosaurus, also sleeping, senses the Utahraptor's distress and uses its arms to gently pull her closer. Utahraptor's response. The Utahraptor turns towards the Allosaurus and wraps her arms and tail around it, embracing it. Sun Wukong's meditative state. Sun Wukong is seen sitting cross-legged on the floor, meditating, with his eyes closed and palms on his knees. The dialogues. The following dialogues take place. Allosaurus, I'm glad we're finally getting some rest. That battle was exhausting. Female Utahraptor, I know, right? I've never felt so drained in my life. Female Utahraptor, thanks for keeping me warm, Allosaurus. I was freezing. Allosaurus, anytime, Utahraptor. We're in this together. The significance. This post-credit scenario shows a softer side, highlights the character's ability to form connections and show affection. Provides closure, offers a sense of tranquility after the intense battle. Contrasts with the battle. The peaceful atmosphere contrasts with the chaos and intensity of the battle. The female Utahraptor's actions. Curling up, shows her vulnerability and need for comfort. Shivering, indicates her physical and emotional exhaustion. Wrapping arms and tail around Allosaurus, demonstrates her trust and affection towards Allosaurus. The Allosaurus, actions. Pulling Utahraptor closer, shows its protective and caring nature. Providing warmth, highlights its instinct to comfort and nurture. Sun Wukong's presence. Meditative state, indicates his calm and focused demeanor. Observing the scene, suggests his awareness of the Utahraptor and Allosaurus interaction. Here's the revised explanation. The setting. The scene takes place in the same hangar where the four warriors SCP-682, Doomsday, Royale, and Lobo had their intense battle. The characters. The characters present in this scene are female Utahraptor, a bipedal theropod dinosaur. Allosaurus, a large carnivorous dinosaur. Sun Wukong, the owner of SCP-682, sitting in a meditative position. SCP-682, the reptile, sleeping in the background. The actions. Here's what happens in the scene. Female Utahraptor's sleeping state. The Utahraptor is shown sleeping, curled up and shivering slightly. In her sleeping state, she pulls her bipedal theropod knees towards her throat. Puts her clawed fingers on her knees. Starts to shiver slightly. Allosaurus, reaction. The Allosaurus, also sleeping, senses the Utahraptor's distress and uses its arms to gently pull her closer. Utahraptor's response. The Utahraptor turns towards the Allosaurus and wraps her arms and tail around it, embracing it. Sun Wukong's meditative state. Sun Wukong is seen sitting cross-legged on the floor, meditating, with his eyes closed and palms on his knees. The dialogues. The following dialogues take place. Allosaurus, I'm glad we're finally getting some rest. That battle was exhausting. Female Utahraptor, I know, right? I've never felt so drained in my life. Female Utahraptor, thanks for keeping me warm, Allosaurus. I was freezing. Allosaurus, anytime, Utahraptor. We're in this together. The significance. This post-credit scenario shows a softer side, highlights the character's ability to form connections and show affection. Provides closure, offers a sense of tranquility after the intense battle. Contrasts with the battle. The peaceful atmosphere contrasts with the chaos and intensity of the battle. Here's the explanation. The final part of the post-credit scenario. The final part of the post-credit scenario reveals that the film's release. The film created by Doomsday, SCP-682, Lobo, and Royale has been released worldwide in theaters and media. Film title. The title of the film is Doomsday vs. Lobo vs. SCP-682 vs. Royale, The Battle of Four Brutes. Disclaimer and instructions. Before playing the film, a disclaimer with instructions is shown, likely warning viewers about the intense content and providing guidance on how to watch the film. Significance. This final part of the post-credit scenario ties up the storyline, provides a sense of closure and completion to the storyline. Highlights the characters' collaboration, emphasizes the collaboration and camaraderie between the four powerful characters. Sets up potential future storylines, leaves room for potential future storylines and sequels, possibly exploring more battles and adventures with these characters. Here's the revised explanation. The final part of the post-credit scenario. The final part of the post-credit scenario reveals that the film's release. The film created by Doomsday, SCP-682, Lobo, and Royale has been released worldwide in theaters and media. Film title. The title of the film is Doomsday vs. Lobo vs. SCP-682 vs. Royale, The Battle of Four Brutes. Disclaimer and instructions. Before playing the film, a disclaimer with instructions is shown. The instructions likely include warning viewers about the intense content, including violence and destruction. Advising viewer discretion, especially for younger audiences. Providing guidance on how to watch the film, such as adjusting audio and visual settings. Significance. This final part of the post-credit scenario ties up the storyline, provides a sense of closure and completion to the storyline. Highlights the characters' collaboration, emphasizes the collaboration and camaraderie between the four powerful characters. Sets up potential future storylines, leaves room for potential future storylines and sequels, possibly exploring more battles and adventures with these characters. Here's the revised explanation. The final part of the post-credit scenario. The final part of the post-credit scenario reveals that the film's release, the film created by Doomsday, SCP-682, Lobo, and Brawley has been released worldwide in theaters and media. Film title. The title of the film is Doomsday vs. Lobo vs. SCP-682 vs. Brawley, The Battle of Four Brutes. Disclaimer and instructions. Before playing the film, a disclaimer with instructions is shown. The instructions likely include warning viewers about the intense content, including violence and destruction. Advising viewer discretion, especially for younger audiences. Providing guidance on how to watch the film, such as adjusting audio and visual settings. A fanboy warning, cautioning viewers not to take the events of the film too seriously. A statement noting that the characters are portrayed by paid actors, further emphasizing the fictional nature of the film. Music and song lyrics. As the film begins to play, unstoppable music starts, accompanied by song lyrics by Sia. The energetic and intense music sets the tone for the epic battle between SCP-682, Doomsday, Brawley, and Lobo. Significance. This final part of the post-credit scenario ties up the storyline, provides a sense of closure and completion to the storyline. Highlights the characters' collaboration, emphasizes the collaboration and camaraderie between the four powerful characters. Sets up potential future storylines, leaves room for potential future storylines and sequels, possibly exploring more battles and adventures with these characters. Here's the revised explanation. The final part of the post-credit scenario. The final part of the post-credit scenario reveals that the film's release, the film created by Doomsday, SCP-682, Lobo, and Brawley has been released worldwide in theaters and media. Film title. The title of the film is Doomsday vs. Lobo vs. SCP-682 vs. Brawley, The Battle of Four Brutes. Disclaimer and instructions. Before playing the film, a disclaimer with instructions is shown. The instructions likely include warning viewers about the intense content, including violence and destruction. Advising viewer discretion, especially for younger audiences. Providing guidance on how to watch the film, such as adjusting audio and visual settings. A fanboy warning, cautioning viewers not to take the events of the film too seriously. A statement noting that the characters are portrayed by paid actors, further emphasizing the fictional nature of the film. Music and song lyrics. As the film begins to play, unstoppable music starts, accompanied by song lyrics by Sia. The energetic and intense music sets the tone for the epic battle between SCP-682, Doomsday, Brawley, and Lobo. Significance. This final part of the post-credit scenario ties up the storyline, provides a sense of closure and completion to the storyline. Highlights the characters' collaboration, emphasizes the collaboration and camaraderie between the four powerful characters. Sets up potential future storylines, leaves room for potential future storylines and sequels, possibly exploring more battles and adventures with these characters.